We're live.
Hi, Ku. Great to see you again. How are you doing?
Hello, Joey. I'm good. Still managing.
That's good to know.
Yeah.
All right. Since we're already a few minutes behind, let me just do a quick intro before I pass the stage over to you.
Okay. Sure.
Yep. So, hi, folks. Welcome again to the Google Developer Space channel. We hope everyone is doing well and keeping safe. Do give yourself a shout out on the live chat or comment section to let us know where are you tuning in from. Before we begin, let me briefly introduce what we do and who we are. Google Developer Space is a platform for developers and startups from around the region to learn, connect, engage, and be inspired. And as part of the developer relations team, we aim to empower and connect the community to our people, program, network, and technologies, be it online like tonight or in person. Tonight, we are welcoming back one of our most engaging developer community, DataScience Singapore, led by Ku over here.
Hey, hello. Good evening, everyone. Welcome and thanks for spending time with us.
Yeah, he has invited a very special speaker tonight for the Fireside Chat, so I can't wait to hear all about the discussion.
Okay, great. So if you all have followed the post and all this, right? So we managed to invite the mystery guest behind the Woke Salaryman, if you all have seen it before. And to the author of Woke Salaryman, if you're here, right, give us a shout out also, just to let us know that you're around. So with that being said, let me bring our guest over. He's actually Zi Liang, who is mentioned in the Woke Salaryman. I call it comic strip. I'm not too sure. Maybe I don't want to offend the artist. Yeah. So I let him do the intro. Then let's bring Zi Liang over now.
Hello, Zi Liang. Hi everyone. Hello.
Hi Zi Liang.
Thanks for having me.
No problem. Glad to have you here.
Exactly. We'll love to have you share your journey on from journalist to data analyst.
Sure.
Yeah. So with that being said, yes.
For those folks like tuning in, just wanted to remind them again, if you have any questions, remember to drop them on the live chat so that Ku and Zi Liang can get to it at the end of the session. Oh, wow. And Zi Liang, if you notice, you have audience tuning in from Vietnam, from Pakistan. So everyone's just saying hi. Yeah. Everyone, hi from Singapore.
Oh, hi, Shafras. Hi, 8999. No, hi Ali.
Yes, so hi everyone once again.
Hi Teresa. Hi. So
I think without further ado, cool. I think feel free to kickstart the event and enjoy, Zi Liang.
Yeah. Sure, thank you.
Thanks, Joey. Okay, Zi Liang. So thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for
we are very glad to have you. We're very glad to have you to share your journey. I think it's something that a lot of people would love to know more about, how to actually transition into this hot industry right now.
Right.
So feel free to share whatever that you're comfortable with, and also to the audience as well, right? We just want to stress here that we are not endorsing any causes in this particular video or stream. Just to let you all know, and we also advise please do your due diligence on the causes that you are interested to take. Okay, so with that being said, Zi Liang, ready?
Sure.
Okay, so let's go.
Okay, so as you know, my name is Zi Liang. I think how I appeared on the radar of DataScience SG was this article that I wrote for the financial blog Woke Salaryman. I'm actually not the person behind that financial blog. It is just a one-off article that I wrote for them. But nevertheless, it drew a bit of attention. So here I am to share a bit more about my journey. So what we'll be talking about today, I'm just going to give a little introduction of myself, talk about why I decided to take the plunge in making a career switch, then how I went about doing it, some job hunting tips, and then a bit about what I do. I've been receiving some questions over the past few days, and I've tried to incorporate them into this presentation, but if I haven't answered them, maybe you can talk about it during the Q&A section at the last part of the presentation. So a little bit about myself. I spent 7 years as a journalist at the Straits Times. So if you take a look at the picture, this is me doing some of these interviews. If I had stayed at the Straits Times the last few weeks would have been a very busy period for me covering the elections. That's something I did in 2011 and 2015. So that was from 2010 and 2017. After I left the Straits Times in 2017, I spent 2 years in corporate communications, a very natural step for a journalist to take, I would say. And then right now, I'm a junior data analyst at the property portal 99.co. So why I took the plunge, I think this is something that a lot of you are interested in. I would say I was pretty much an analog person in the digital world. And what I mean by that was that at that point in time when I was in corporate communications, I thought my skills were very analog in the sense that it was about writing, it was about having good contacts, about interviewing people. And I noticed that the world was becoming increasingly digital. So I thought, wow, okay, I better start doing something about this, start changing my skill set, upgrading myself. I felt I was also in the right place at the right time. I was in my early 30s and thought that I just made one job change so far in about 9 years of working. So it was perhaps the right time to do something rather more drastic. Otherwise, if I had waited for a few more years, it might have been a bit more difficult for myself. So I thought that was the right time for me to move. And finally, we keep hearing that data is the new oil. Some people say data is the new air. And at that point in time, back in 2018, 2019, I was a corporate communications professional at a bank. And so all these headlines that I was seeing about banks talking about big data, wanting data to drive the next stage of growth really got me curious about data and frankly a little bit scared as well that I didn't know anything much about data. So I decided that I needed to find out more about this really booming industry. So these were some of the reasons. So how I did it, how I went about finding out more about data and eventually moving to change my career. I would say I took baby steps at the start. So this was from October 2018, I started this journey of self-learning. I would say I started signing up for online courses and I saw that, they were like about $20 at the most. I thought, hey, okay, I'll sign up for this coding course online. It's $20. It's less than 2 movie tickets. What's there to lose, right? Maybe I'll lose interest, but hey, that's okay. I'll just waste a couple of months of my time and that's about it. But fortunately, I didn't lose interest. I started to learn more about coding in Python and about the data science process, and I got more and more interested. So I started taking more courses. Then in January, which is about 3 months of self-learning, I started becoming more serious. So I started thinking about my career, where it was headed, where this self-learning would take me. And that's when I started to set some goals. And I think, setting goals sounds quite scary, like, wow, you have to map out your 10-year plan or something like that. I think it doesn't have to be that way. If your goal is simply to mess around with some code, to fill up, free time for every few hours per week, then that's totally fine. But at least you know what you are doing and why you are doing it. I think that helped me a lot. So I set myself the goal of first finishing one course, then later 2 courses, and then later I set myself the goal of seeing how this could fit in my career. So I started to think about transferable skills, and some of you who read the Woke Salaryman article would have seen that I started thinking about how there were some similarities between a journalist and a data analyst job. So, for example, a journalist gathers data and then simplifies it to tell a story, which I think is really quite similar to what a data analyst does. But when a data analyst crunches data and then draws insights from it to tell a good narrative about where the company is headed or what the company should do to boost its growth. After these steps, I started to explore my options. That was at the start of 2019. So that was about 3 to 4 months into my self-learning journey. Started thinking about, should I switch within the organization, try to pivot to a more technical role within the organization, or should I start afresh? And then I started thinking about, hey, maybe I should do a master's, or maybe I should do a bootcamp, a data science bootcamp instead, because that is faster. So ultimately, as you know, I chose to do a data science bootcamp because I thought that would take up less of my time, and then I could pivot to a totally new career quicker. So that was part of my consideration. One big thing that I will emphasize is to be aware of the competition. As you know, data is a booming industry, so a lot of people are trying to get in. If you look at some of the data analysts openings on LinkedIn, you will see easily like 200 applicants per job. So it is quite competitive now, and more and more boot camps, more and more masters are being offered now. Online masters are being offered as well. So more and more talent are entering the pipeline. It's definitely something that I think we should be aware of as we consider our options. Something that's very important, family support. I'm very lucky to have a very supportive wife who saw the importance of picking up digital skills in this time and era, especially for someone like me whose skills were very analog at that point in time. So she was very okay with me taking a pay cut, even stopping my career temporarily to go into full-time studies, and then full-time pursuit into switching a career. So this is something definitely you have to thrash out with your loved ones to all be on the same page, I would say, before taking a drastic step. Finally, the issue of money. So I like to joke that this is about an approximate amount of money you need to do a career switch. But jokes aside, right? I think having a good buffer during your full-time studies and also during the job hunting period is very important. The bigger your buffer, the more leeway you have to maneuver and say no to jobs that don't suit you so well. The more time you have to play around with. So that's the way I saw having a good monetary buffer. So how much is enough? I would say maybe have at least 6 months, and then or whatever amount you decide that you think you would take to find a new job, and then maybe add a couple of months more, just as a sort of emergency kind of thing. Okay, so after I finished my bootcamp, I joined the bootcamp in June. So that was after 9 months of self-learning, and then a 12-week bootcamp. So by the time I finished the bootcamp, that was in September. That was when I started my job hunting in earnest. Some of the things that I picked up during my job hunting journey. I think that meetups and friends introductions are really, really important. For people who don't have background and requisite experience like myself, friends introduction or a meetup just to talk to the potential hiring manager was really key for me. I treated it like a first interview of sorts when I meet somebody at a meetup, so as to get over that barrier of your resume doesn't look that good, but hey, at least you are talking to me right now. I can introduce myself a bit, let them know my personality a bit and the motivations behind why I was doing this. That was very, really invaluable to me. Projects, I think, are very important. Some of the questions that I get are like, do you think getting more badges from doing online courses is more important, or projects are more important? My personal experience is that projects were much more important in the sense that during interviews, projects will come out more frequently. People ask, you don't have any experience, but perhaps you can talk about some of the work you have done to demonstrate your enthusiasm about the subject or to demonstrate some form of technical ability. And then that's when projects that I had done either on my own self-interest or during the bootcamp came in handy. I could talk about them and some of the thought processes that went behind them. Revise. I say this because you might think that you know a concept, a data science concept, but it's very different when you have to explain it. During an interview, you can't just call up a YouTube video and say, hey, okay, I'm going to show you this video of how logistic regression works, for example. You have to explain it as succinctly as a video, but without the kind of visual aids that come into play when you're watching a video. So revision, I can't stress enough, is really important. And finally, don't give up. I know it took me nearly 6 months. The bootcamp that I joined had a stipulation that you had to find a job within 6 months, and I was already cutting it close. So I think it's tough. You have to keep the faith, and even when you get rejections or you have to continue. In fact, rejections, I would say, is not the most difficult part, because at least you've tried and at least you got a callback. Most difficult part for me was actually the ghosting. You send out 100 resumes and you don't hear back from 90 of the companies that you contacted. You just have to keep pushing on. So I got questions about what I do now as well. So that's a little bit about that. As I mentioned, I'm at 99.co, is a property portal, junior analyst there. So what I do is I work with a lot of user-generated data, and this is not just property seekers, but property agents as well. What kind of agent tools they use, or what kind of filters property seekers generally use. The tools that I use the most are actually SQL, Tableau, and Excel. I think SQL is really important. So one of the things that I do is work very closely with product managers to talk about the kind of challenges they have and how data can help them make decisions better. So communication is really important, and this is something I think I was quite happy to find out about, because as you know, my previous job experience was in communication, so I can really bring some of the skills I have from my past experience to bear in my new job. And finally, I think understanding the business is key, because once you understand the business, you know what are the priorities of the business. Then naturally you will know which parts of the data stream are important to your stakeholders, and how to talk to them so that they know that you and them are on the same page. So these are some of the things that I'm discovering a few months into the job. So finally, before we go to questions, I would like to continue this conversation with you. We can connect on LinkedIn. I also write a newsletter about my career switch. It's called Art Science Millennial, because I believe that as millennials, we can no longer pigeonhole ourselves into whether we are art students or science students. Even somebody like me from a non-STEM background, and so as someone who will be seen as an art student, you have to know about science as well, and science is interesting. At the bottom are some of the headlines of the articles that I've written. So hope to continue the conversation right now and later on as well. Okay, thanks, Ku. Thanks for letting me speak for these few minutes.
No problem. Thanks for sharing. So just like to let the audience know, if you have any questions, right, please feel free to put it into the platform that you are currently watching this. So if it's YouTube, you can go to the site and put down the questions. And I think for Facebook will be under the chat or comments. So please feel free to post your questions. But meanwhile, I think what we'll do is let's answer some of the questions from the audience way earlier on. Maybe let's start with this one first. So how has the transition to an entirely new scope been so far for you? Besides scope, any big differences or things that you did not expect?
Okay. Honestly, it's been great. I think I was very lucky to have joined a good company, 99.co, which is really open to people like myself doing career switches or career transitions. And I was very lucky that the hiring manager was able to look past my lack of formal education, so to speak, in data or in STEM to hire me based on my interview and my technical tests. So a bit about the scope. I think I spoken a bit about the scope. So in terms of things I did not expect, right? I think at the start, I plunged into the job like, this data, I must really, show my technical ability, and from the get-go, really start diving into the SQL and the Tableau and the Excel, things like that. But 1 or 2 weeks into the job, somebody actually stopped me and say, hey, why are you pulling out all this data in the first place? What are the questions you're trying to answer, and who are you helping with this data, and what is that person's objective in the first place? Then I realized that, hey, the part about communication, the part about knowing the business priorities is really super important, and actually kind of shame on myself as a communications professional, totally forgetting about this aspect of data science. So that really pulled me back a step, and that was when I realized, I not just have to focus on this technical aspect, but on the communication part as well, and knowing the business as well. Yeah.
I see. Okay. Yeah, knowing the business. That's what we have been stressing all along also. Over here in the community. Let's take maybe 1 or 2 questions from the floor now. So I think Igor was asking, so where do you see yourself in maybe the next 5 years? This one sounds like an interview question. Is Igor, are you like trying to recruit Zi Liang? Yeah.
Igor is working with me right now. He's a senior product manager at 99.co.
I see.
He's giving me a hard time, or he's having some fun with me.
Okay, so we can skip this. You continue stay with 99.co for 5 years.
Because I think it is important to have a good career path, right? Right now,
True.
I think I just want to learn more about the business, really establish myself in this space. And then in 5 years' time, I've been thinking about things like, either deepening my theoretical understanding of data science, that may be possibly through a master's program, so that, I can take the step towards becoming a data scientist. That's one of the potential career paths. Yeah. Either that, or, if I were to continue in my data analytics route, then really become very well versed in the business side as well. So possibly straddling both the technical and the business side of things. Yeah.
Okay. So Igor was saying, genuinely, he's asking about your next 5 years.
Yeah. So.
Okay. Thanks, Igor, for the question. Let's let me hold on. Let's do another one from the. Yeah. Okay. Let's do this. So you mentioned that the communication skill was one of the skills that was sort of transferable across, right? Is there any other skills that you see that is transferable as well from?
Yeah. So one of the things as a journalist, you have to tell a compelling story with a good start, a middle, and an end, right? And to let people know, hey, why should you be reading my story in the first place? What's the so what inside the story? And I think that's very key to any presentation you do in data science as well. And frankly, that's something that I still struggle from time to time. Sometimes I do a presentation, and then the stakeholder says, this is all beautiful and well and interesting, but so what? What does this mean for my business? What can I do with this? Then is this going to raise my revenue? Is this going to boost my traffic? Things like that. So I think as journalists, you're always trying to get to the so what, and as data analysts as well. That's one very key commonality that I see in both careers.
Okay. I'm pretty sure we will get this kind of this question, so might as well let's get this with Hona. Let's see. Okay, Ben. Let's do this. So let's get this. Let's ask this question then. Yeah, so I see that you are into Wing Chun, right? So have you used any martial art philosophy to guide your journey? So maybe like Bruce Lee, that must sting like a bee or something like that. I can't remember.
Be like water.
Be like water and sting like a bee. Yeah.
I think that question came about because of this Wing Chun dummy behind me. I've been doing Wing Chun for 10 years now. Of course, it's not like 24/7. It's just a hobby of mine. So definitely one of the things perhaps is like perseverance. In martial arts, I think you don't see improvements in just a few weeks or even a few months. You have to persevere with it. I still feel like a beginner every time I meet somebody who is more skilled than me, even though I've been doing it for 10 years. And I think that's the same when it comes to constant learning, adult learning. You might think like, wow, I've met my goal, I completed my bootcamp, wow, I found a new job and I've arrived. But then you see somebody else who's doing so much more, and then you feel like a beginner all over again. There's always something new to learn. I think that is one key thing that I've learned in martial arts, and I can apply to careers as well.
Okay. Let's do another question now. So maybe let's rephrase this question a bit. And given what you have went through and all this, right? I mean, you have went through a career transition and all this. Would you advise someone who's thinking of making a career transition under current circumstances? If yes, why? If not, no, why not?
Okay. So I think to answer this question, you have to set your own goal first, like I said. So what is your goal? Is it really to change your career completely into a new industry, or is it to pivot to a role where you have more technical, you apply more technical skills, right? I think that's the first question. I would say that with this COVID situation, it becomes even more important to have new skills in case you find yourself having to make a sudden career switch, not out of choice but out of necessity, right? At least you can look for something that is a bit different from what you have been doing. So you have more options. I think the key is to expand your options. So that even if you are not doing a career transition at this point, or you think that it's the wrong time to do a career transition, at least you have the option to do so if it's forced upon you. Yeah, I think that's the most important part. As to whether this is the right time or not, I think everyone has their own considerations. I have friends who have changed jobs even during this point in time when the economy is slowing down, and everyone thinks that it's not the right time to do something. But hey, they found a new job and they are changing roles. So I don't think it's impossible. In fact, I think it's all the more important to increase your options in this climate.
Okay. Let's do another question from
Sure.
the spreadsheet. So in retrospect, could you have self-learned the skills needed for your role?
I think if we talk about theoretically, yes, because right now the internet, as I see it, there are so many online courses available. You can do them cheaply or even for free by doing claims on them, things like that. So theoretically, definitely possible. But if you ask me if I have any regrets doing a data science bootcamp, I would say no, because doing a full-time data science bootcamp was a signal of strong intention to potential employers that I'm really serious about this. I'm taking a plunge. This is not just I'm not just playing around during my free time. Secondly, it really helped me to build up a network of like-minded individuals, people who were also into adult learning, who wanted to make a switch as well. And I think that support network was really important during those months in the wilderness looking for a job. So we will exchange tips, exchange leads on jobs, things like that. And when morale was down, we just talk in the WhatsApp chat group, keep our spirits up. That was invaluable to me. Unfortunately, I think with the COVID situation as it is, classroom learning might have stopped at a lot of boot camps. So for anyone who looking to join boot camps or even masters, I think that's a key question you have to ask the admissions officer. How would learning be during this time?
Okay. Great. I think we're getting more questions now. Maybe what you can, let's do this. Okay, let's do this. So, what are the online courses you would suggest to take as beginner to enter the field? Yeah.
Okay. So right now, as I say, I'm using a lot of SQL, and I think the reach that I see online is Python, coding equals Python right now. Or at least that's what it seems to be if you just read some Medium posts, right? I think Python is very interesting, and I still use it on and off. In fact, to solve some of my day-to-day tasks, I use Python. But I think SQL is underrated. It's not as talked about, but actually is quite key to querying databases. So, and I think that's a question that comes out a lot during some of the tech interviews that I went to. So definitely that's something important. On other than that, if you would like to do a big overview of not just learning coding, but also some of the key concepts in data science, and that can be very, very simple things like logistic regression, linear regression. I think that's important to do. I actually did such a course. So the online courses that I did were on Tableau, on Python, and I did a little bit about NLP as well, because that has something to do with my previous profession as a writer, right? And then I think that really helped when I entered the bootcamp, because I think as bootcamps go, just 12 weeks, they don't have time to teach you Python from scratch. And I think if I had joined the bootcamp without learning anything at all by myself, I would definitely have dropped out of the bootcamp, I think. Okay. So yeah, just to get your coding up.
Okay, so I'm curious, right? Where do you learn your machine learning then? I mean, this is my own question. Where do you learn your machine learning then?
Where? I use Udemy.
Okay.
So some of the courses that I saw, I can't recall the name exactly right now. I believe it's the courses that I did were mentioned inside the Woke Salaryman article.
The Woke Salaryman, okay.
So you can definitely find them quite easily over there. Yeah,
okay.
And just a shout out, like you can do them really cheaply or even claim it from SkillsFuture. So yeah, it's easy to do. Some of the things that people say about SkillsFuture, like, it's $500. Can I really make a career transition? And I think obviously the answer is no, because I mean, think about it. Like you learn piano, or you learn tennis, or learn Muay Thai, or even Wing Chun, right? You spend $500 on a coach. Do you think you really can get anywhere with that? I think it sparks your interest, and it starts you on it. But if to become really professional or gain a certain level of expertise, you need to go beyond that. Yeah.
Okay. Let's do this one. Let's do the next question. So between maybe Tableau, ClickSense, and Power BI, right? Which do you think is better at exploring and explaining data? I think he's asking about visualization tools then. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's really, there's really no right answer to this. I don't have any experience with ClickSense, and I've only used Power BI a little bit. So if you ask me personally, of course, I would say Tableau, right? Because that's something that I'm most familiar with. But somebody who has a different experience would see otherwise. Or somebody who only uses Python will say, hey, no, Python are nothing. All these things are pretenders. Let's just go with Python. So I would say be too agnostic. That's what I really realized. I was doing all these, pivot tables and crazy things with pandas in Python, right? Trying to crunch the numbers. And then the other day, the person who hired me a couple of months ago, I was like, hey, why are you doing this? Like, can I show you this thing called Excel? And then he just dumped the numbers in Excel and then click like some noise in pivot table. And then the same thing came out.
Okay.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm not trying to sell Excel or Google Sheets or whatever, but I think the best tool is the tool that gets the job done the quickest.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree with you on that. It has never been about the tools. It has more about how to derive the value from the data rather. Yeah. Okay, that's good. Let's answer this one. This one was from the previous questions. So is data science a hype to, because I think I'm afraid that there are too many people rushing into this industry. I think just now in your presentation you also pointed about that. So what's your thoughts?
Yeah, so I think definitely getting more competitive, like I said earlier, right? Any LinkedIn job post you check out, easily 200 applicants or something like that. So a lot of people are trying to get in. But I mean, far be it for me to say that it's impossible right now, don't join anymore, that kind of thing. I think what my advice would be is to have to enter the industry with your eyes open. To know that these are the challenges. But I think there's a deeper level to that question, right? Which is whether it's just a hype, whether or not companies and banks and what have you will stop talking about data in a couple of years' time. I think initially there was a lot of excitement about data because it seemed to be very new, and there seemed to be a lot of potential with things like machine learning and AI. But I read this article on The Economist. I think it summed it up pretty well as to why companies are struggling to implement AI and machine learning in their companies. And that's because they don't have clean data in the first place. Or they don't want to, and then they realize that to get clean data, they have to invest so much resources. And then it's going to take months or even years then to generate the kind of data that you need in order for machine learning and AI to shine. And then they realize, oh my God, what have I gotten myself into, right?
Yeah.
And then that's not the worst part. I think the worst part is after they gather this data and then finally they deploy their machine learning model, a few months down the road, the data scientist comes to them and say, hey, you know what, it's time to retrain our model. It's time to invest even more resources to gather even more data, because guess what? The data that you gathered for the last few years painstakingly is now out of date, or we have to repeat that process all over again. So the Economist article put it as AI is not a deploy and forget kind of a thing, and that's the main challenge that I think companies are just realizing that is something that constant maintenance is needed for it to really shine. And they realize that, wow, okay, actually I have so many other more low-lying fruits to pick just through doing Excel and doing Tableau. I can increase my revenue or my profits by so many times more. So why did I bother with this AI thing in the first place? I think that's where the disillusionment is coming in. Yeah. So definitely, I think if you are in a position to pick and choose companies, then these are the questions you have to ask the company, like which stage are you at? What are your data gathering processes, things like that. I think they're very fundamental.
Okay. Well, so then whatever that you share, right, it's things that we have been sharing for the longest time, and I'm glad that it comes from you, someone for someone who has been in the industry for just a short while, but has been able to sort of get all this. Yeah, I'm very glad. Yeah. Okay, let's do another question from the floor.
Sure.
Okay, so this is from Boon Long. How to overcome the steep learning curve while doing self-learning? I guess a lot of discipline will be involved, right?
Yeah, I think a lot of discipline is involved. This other thing that I preach on my newsletter as well is, to really get interested in the thing that you're learning. Otherwise, it's going to be a drag. Like if you're doing the machine learning course online just because you want that badge and to write something on a resume, it's definitely going to be a pain, right? But let's say, you're learning about statistics because you're interested in politics and you want to know more about how opinion polling is done, especially in other countries like the US, for example. You want to know how reliable those presidential polls are. Then you start learning about statistics from that point of view, I think you stand a much greater chance of retaining your interest and going deeper. So definitely approach it from an interest standpoint rather than a career standpoint at the start. Yeah, I think that really helps. For me, actually, I was really skeptical about this online learning process. I think as many of us were, because after all, we were brought up in classroom learning, right? So how good can this online learning thing be? But I realized that as an adult learner, you don't have the luxury of always committing, say, like 3 hours non-stop to learning. Life gets in the way, your job gets in the way, family commitment gets in the way. So for me, I was really stealing time in between my commute to work just to watch 10 minutes of the course rather than to scroll mindlessly through Facebook again, right? Might as well watch a video about Python. During lunch breaks, if I was having lunch alone, no lunch cookies at that point in time, then okay, just take out the video and watch a bit. I might not get 100% of what the video is saying, but even 50% will help me so that when I watch it for the second time, then at least I get it quicker the next time. So these little habits for me were very, very important to maintaining the self-discipline.
Okay. So the passion was do something that you're very interested in and focus on that, right?
Yeah, and really discovering your interest in science, I would say, be it data science or stats or whatever. I don't want to say that art students only interested in words, only interested in photos or videos or things like that. Actually, the things that we are interested in are rooted in science as well, and it's just up to us to find that connection so that we turn our interest towards things that we can then apply to our careers.
Okay. Great. So let's do another one from the floor. This one. So what are the software that you advise one to be well versed in, right, in order to do a career switch into data analytics role? So software. So you mentioned about SQL, right?
Yeah. So I mentioned SQL. I think if you look at a lot of the job descriptions online nowadays, they talk about one of the visualization softwares as well. So either Tableau or as someone else mentioned, Power BI, ClickSense, things like that. I think it's less to do with whether you can hit the ground running on day one. They actually just want to see your thought process behind how you build those visualizations or how you came about with the data set. I think that's more important. And at the start, I also struggled with this a lot. I was reading like 100 articles about whether I should learn coding in the first place, and if I should learn coding, then should I do Python or R, Python versus R? There are 100 million articles about this. Right?
Yeah.
Because you kind of think like, well, at the start, if I take the plunge to learn something as difficult as coding, I better not waste my time. I better learn something that is applicable right from the start. So I spent so much time trying to learn the thing that I thought would put me in good state for the next 20 years or so. But then I realized, like, after I started learning, then I realized, new libraries, new things are popping out every couple of months or so. Like if you chase that skill with the assumption that it will just allow you to not learn anymore for the next 10 years or so, I think that you won't be able to find something that will fit the bill. That's what I'm trying to say. Yeah.
Okay. So then, do you have any like prior programming experience before this analyst thing? Yeah.
No, zero. My degree.
So how do you go about? Oh, sorry. So how do you go about learning your programming then? How do you start? Maybe you can share with the audience, because I think for the audience, right? I think some of them may be a bit hesitant because for me, like, there are some people who ask me, hey, cool, how to pick up programming and all this. So I think it's good for you to share how you pick up your programming skills and what do you learn along the way. Yeah.
Sure. So like I said, my background is non-STEM, totally zero programming experience. The first time I wrote Hello World was Hello World is like the first thing you will ever write if you learn any programming language, right? So
Yes.
the first time I wrote that was in October 2018.
Okay.
And
Quite
how
memorable.
yeah, quite memorable. I just decided that, hey, I'm just going to try this course. If I end up hating it, then I hate it. But what the hell? It's just $20, like I said. Not much harm in doing it. So I chose it, and I just did it. I was quite pleasantly surprised by how how easy it was in a sense. Just following along, code along sessions, things like that, and then really getting into it from there lah. So I think really there's no magic formula. Unfortunately, I don't have this like eureka moment to share with you as to when it all started making sense. But just if you are somebody who enjoys like little brain teasers, or little like math problems, like primary school math problems, right? Like, you bought 100 jugs of beer and then you want to share them with 20 friends, but then some of them prefer this flavor, some of them prefer the other flavor. Then these are things that started getting me interested in coding. So yeah, don't know if I answered the question, but I really started from scratch in that sense. And even though I mean, I wouldn't say I'm anywhere even near intermediate stage. Every day I'm trying to learn something new. But and then there was the level at which I was comfortable doing self-learning. And then when I was plunged into the bootcamp, it was a whole different level. Like, oh, okay. And then when I started day one of my job, it was yet another level.
Okay.
This is real now. If I screw this up, somebody's going to use this data and then make business decision based on this, and then something could go really wrong. So I better get this right. So the pressure is always going to increase if you decide to go on this route.
Okay, great. Okay, let's take one more question from the floor.
Sure.
So I believe statistics have an important role in analytics. So maybe about what portion, and then does your current role have a strong emphasis using statistics to answer the business needs? Yeah. So this is from Daryl.
Yeah. Okay. So I think statistics and mathematical models, I think they are important when you go into data science. Like you have to, at the very least, be able to understand the concept and be able to explain them at interviews, right? When somebody asks you something as simple as how does linear regression work, under what circumstances will linear regression work, then you have to be able to give the answer succinctly and clearly. And I think it's something that, again, there's no learn and then forget. Like you learn it and then you have to constantly use it, or else you forget, and then in the end you have to revise again if you go for interview. So definitely I would say, very honestly, if you ask me right now, I wouldn't be able to give you a very good answer because I haven't been revising that much, right? If I go for interview, I'll definitely cram for like a few days at least for these concepts. Whether or not you use them during your job, I think that really depends on whether your employer is using machine learning. Because like I said, actually there are a lot of very low-lying fruits and yet very effective fruits. Low-lying doesn't mean bad or anything, They are low-lying in the sense that they are very basic, but yet the value derived from taking these steps are really huge. And then you realize that actually these steps, they are informed by data, but you don't even really need to employ much statistical models to it even. It's as good as looking at a good visualization and saying, oh, okay, I didn't realize this. Let's just start doing it right now, So yeah, I think right now I'm at that stage in my career.
Okay.
Would really like to go to the next step, but like I said, then I would like to pursue some maybe even more formal education, things like that, or upgrade my abilities in statistics first before seeing where that takes me. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Another question from the floor, and that is, are you still actively taking online courses to improve your skills?
Okay. So short answer is I've been taking online courses in Tableau just last month. Because I'm trying to maximize my usage of that visualization tool. In terms of other courses, not that much. I think I've already been put through the grinder in terms of SQL, just day-to-day work.
Okay.
Still a lot to
Okay.
learn, but just bouncing ideas off my fellow data analysts really helps sharpen my skills in that sense already. Other times, I think I'm putting my effort into writing my newsletter as well, because I think that really sharpens my connection of data science concepts or just tech concepts to everyday life. And I think that's something I'm quite passionate about at this point in time, to draw that connection for myself and for other people, my fellow non-STEM backgrounders. Yeah.
Okay. Another question from the floor. I won't be showing it because it actually showed the name of your bootcamp. But
Sure.
he's asking whether taking the online courses from Udemy, right? Do you think it's a prerequisite for a more serious course like your bootcamp?
Right. Prerequisite. I mean, as a technical prerequisite in the sense of like, if you don't take the SAT, you can't enter certain universities, then the answer is no, because it's not a technical prerequisite. But in the sense of whether or not you will survive the bootcamp, for me, the answer is definitely yes. Because as somebody who had like literally zero programming background, if I had entered the bootcamp at that stage, like I said, I definitely think my chances of surviving it would have been very low. Because they really don't have time to teach you Python from scratch. You enter and they are really trying to give you little problems to solve with Python already. That's the level of competence they expect. And then by the second or third week, they are making you use machine learning libraries. So if you are still struggling with defining variables or writing the most simple functions, then definitely you are at a disadvantage. And I think not just from the standpoint of completing the course, right? You're not deriving the most out of that course because you are struggling with the most basic concepts. You can't bring yourself to ask more in-depth questions of the instructor or to interact with your course mates on a deeper level. I think, that's something that you should be thinking of getting out of your data science course, because that goes beyond just a Udemy course, right? When you join a bootcamp, you want to get the most out of your instructor and get the most out of your fellow course mates.
Yeah. So actually, what you're saying is that the courses that you take from Udemy actually does help in your learning.
Definitely.
In bootcamp.
Definitely.
Okay. I think this is another interesting question that I think most people will ask. Let me show this now. How much do employers actually weigh master's degree on data analytics? Do you think having a relevant degree is important for a non-STEM major working in finance rather than doing a few projects? I think let's break this question down first. So I think based on how you have seen the market, right, the job market and all this, what's your thought on the first question? How much is the way for the master's degree? Yeah.
I think unfortunately we still live in quite a paper chase kind of environment. So when people see masters, rightly or wrongly, it still signifies a certain level of seriousness and certain level of effort that person has put into learning that new skill, right? So definitely, I think it does open some doors, I would have to say. whether or not that employer is open to letting you take the technical test despite you not having a master's. I would say there are still employers who are open to letting you take that technical test, but just purely from my own experience, I would say that there are fewer of them. And then even worse for someone like me who has a non-STEM background, right? Definitely, I have met people who have told me to my face like, oh, yeah, I mean, I spend more time talking to that person because he has an engineering degree. Because he has an engineering degree or he has a bio degree or something like that. Even though that has actually quite little to do with data science, but I think engineering or equals that person has certain level of math or certain level of comfort with numbers. So they go with that. So that's something that as a non-STEM person, you just have to work harder to overcome. To work harder to demonstrate a certain level of comfort with numbers and certain level of technical ability. Yeah.
So if we go back to the question from Chloe, right? The second part of her question, I believe, is something along that line. So, will a degree help, or would projects, projects help? So you mentioned, I think during your presentation just now, you mentioned about doing some projects and all this, right? So, what's your thoughts on the project then? Does it help you to get the job?
Projects, I think definitely. I was mentioning I think they are less concerned about whether or not you end up with a very good outcome. By that I mean you managed to get 95% accuracy or 100% accuracy, something like that. I think they are less concerned about that because after all, it's a project, and if it's really that good, then maybe you will be out there monetizing a project already. You will even be interviewing for a job. That's number one. I think they are more the questions that I got, at least they showed me that they were more concerned about my thought process behind the project, like why I chose to do the project in the first place. So it points towards certain passions of mine. Then what are the thought processes behind how I define the scope of the project, how I went about getting the data set, how I went about how I went about determining what is the relevant data set. That gives them a lot more insight into my thought process, and I think that was something that more discerning interviewers were interested in.
No, I'm so glad. I hear that two keywords from you, and that is the thought process. People actually, employers are looking more at your thought process rather than your degrees and all this. I'm so glad because I have been advocating that inside my blog, inside my LinkedIn, and all this. I've been sharing with other people. Focus on your thought process. I think that's the one that employers are looking for. I'm so glad to hear that from you.
So funny story was, I think I went for one interview that featured the infamous whiteboard test, right?
Okay.
And that was my first and only encounter of the whiteboard test. And it was terrifying, really terrifying. There's no other way to put it. Because there was just myself, then three people watching me code. And I always describe it to my friends it's like doing your A-level math exam, and then three teachers are watching you write every single line of working, right? It's as unnerving as that. So I thought I definitely have flunked it. I couldn't even go 30 seconds without being prompted on what's the next step, right? But then later on, the interviewer told me he was not really expecting me to write perfect code or even come up with something anywhere close to the answer. It was more about how I approach a problem, how I try to break it down into small solvable parts and then work towards something close to an answer. Or even if I couldn't, then could I at least respond to prompts from the examiner in a positive way.
Okay.
That's
good.
That was
that's
really
good.
valuable. It was a really valuable lesson that I took away.
Okay. You actually answered the other question I have for you, and what is the weirdest interview you have gone for? I guess you answered that already.
I answered that. That was not the weirdest. That was challenging and most valuable. The weirdest was with a company. that shall go unnamed, as always.
Of course.
Yeah, so I was interviewing with somebody who would be my boss, and then he asked me to describe my general approach to solving a data science problem. So I talked about the usual like how I would frame the question, drive at certain outcomes, and then perhaps this is like a classification problem, so I would start from the simplest model, which is logistic regression, and then if that doesn't solve the problem, work my way up. And then I thought, then he was looking at me with an expectant look. So I thought, okay, I will explain a bit about logistic regression, right? So I talked about, it's one of the simplest models, and it works this way and that way, draws few examples. And then after I finished, then this guy looked at me really seriously, and he said, nobody in this room has any idea what you're talking about.
Okay.
So I was like, wow, blown away. It was like, I think I described it in the Woke Salaryman article. It was like speaking to a biologist, and that person says he has no idea what DNA is about. On the level. So okay. I was really kind of weirded out, but I thought like, wow, okay, I'm a rookie in this field. I shouldn't go about throwing my weight around. So I just tried my best to continue the interview. So I think I wrote something like, there are two kinds of difficult interviews, the really difficult ones and the weird ones, and then both will make you eat humble pie.
Okay.
I think that's really important for a career switch. You really have to eat humble pie and be prepared for any situation.
Yeah. This is a very new field. This is a very new field. So everyone is also trying to find out how is everyone doing, which level they are in, and so on and so forth. Okay. I think we only have maybe time for a few more questions. So let's. Sure. Okay. I think you have a long time no see friend. Let me show.
Right. The name quite familiar. I think it's a JC acquaintance of mine.
Okay. So so your story seems like very bad odds for non-STEMs to get data jobs. Any specific advice on whether to increase tech skills or to sell hybridness? What helped you get the job? Yeah.
Right. Okay. So I think you can't really see these two things, hybridness and tech skills, as kind of mutually exclusive. If you increase your tech skills, then you're increasing your hybridness as well. That was how I approached the problem. And I thought, like, even if I didn't make it in finding a data analytics job, then at least, when I speak to data people, I can sort of speak their language in a sense, and act as like the go-between between business and the tech side of things. So that is still definitely a viable career move. And I think a lot of my data science bootcamp classmates, they went on to do such things as well. Some of them are in business development roles where they play the hybrid role. So it's definitely a viable move. You don't have to take the full plunge like me. For me, I decided I wanted to take the full plunge for a while at least, because I wanted to fully immerse myself in tech skills and see how far I can go. But not everyone wants to make that decision, and it's definitely a legit move.
Okay. There's another FAQ that people usually ask, right? I think for people who are thinking about doing a career transition, and that is maybe let's go back to the decision when you were making, right, whether to join a bootcamp or a master's degree, right? What were some of the considerations that you make, and why at the end of the day you chose a bootcamp over a master's?
Okay, so very practically, I was thinking of time and money. So masters will take definitely more time and more money. So that was one consideration. Second consideration was I actually spent some time speaking to some of the recent graduates of that bootcamp that I joined. So they gave me quite a good impression, frankly. And they were able to find jobs in like different MNCs as well in data-related roles. and they gave me a good impression in the sense that they said that the bootcamp was worth their while. So then I approached the bootcamp in a sense of just wanting to find out more. So I went down and speak to the admissions officer and then find out a bit of statistics on like the number of graduates who could find a data-related role within 6 months. It sounded like the odds were quite good. So after weighing the pros and cons, I just decided that okay, there was some risk involved, but it was a calculated risk that I could take. So I just decided to take the bootcamp.
I see. So you actually did a lot of homework, like you went down and talked to the admission managers and all these, find out the
I think more than ever the homework is important because like I said, the learning environment is going to be very different, be it for masters or be it for boot camps, right? With the COVID situation, and you don't know when the situation will resolve. This online learning, even for traditional classroom environment, is going to be around for quite a while to come.
Yeah, true. Okay, let's do one last question before we wrap up. So this last question, I reserve it for myself, and that is okay. I'm because I'm an instructor. I also like to know a mindset of my participants, my trainees or my students and all this, right? And let's say if you were to advise people like me, right, as an instructor, what can I do to help you all learn better?
What can you do to help us learn better? And as you're referring to like adult learners or
adult learners, yes.
Right. Okay.
Is that a tough question?
I think everyone has different pace. So one of the things I saw was that not everybody was picking up the material at the same time. So definitely, even though we are adults, I think it's human nature that cliques start forming as well.
Yeah, true.
Hanging out with certain people that are more on your wavelength, things like that. You know, it's the dynamic that was in secondary school, and then I was very surprised. Like, hey, here I am doing something, the same things happening.
Okay,
So as an instructor, I think you have to be very aware of that. And try to help everyone interact.
So
in that sense, mix and match people, help them along, and then but at the same time, it's like not one size fits all. Like some people, they are really glad to be back at school, and then they really immerse themselves or make new friends, things like that. Then some of them are really focused, like, hey, I'm here 9 to 5, I'm learning 5 p.m. Sorry, I gotta go pick up my kids. Bye bye. Don't keep me for a minute more. That is a totally different mindset on it, but I mean totally legit as well, right? Everyone has priorities. So it's really like keeping tabs on these different people.
Okay.
I think that is one big thing that every instructor has to handle.
Yeah, I get your point. I understand also. So as much as possible, I try to keep everyone on the same. How put it? Treat everyone the same. As long as they got a question and all this, I will let them have access to me to ask the question and all. Okay, but thanks for that. Okay, so I think that's all the time that we have really. We overrun a bit, but I think we have a lot of interesting questions being asked and all this. So great. So with that being said, any maybe last summary, last conclusion, or last statement for anyone out there who's thinking about career transition? Maybe just a statement or two.
I think thinking about it is a great first step already, and then the next step would actually be doing something, and even if that something is really small, like I said, baby steps, right? To get to where you are, you don't have to take the plunge into the deep end immediately. Just take small steps until you are comfortable to take bigger ones.
Okay. So more importantly is think, yes, plan, yes, but more importantly is the last step, which is taking a step forward, right? Okay.
Thanks for coming up.
Okay, thanks Liang for joining us, sharing your experience. Yep. And to the rest of the audience, I think that's all for the stream ready. Thank you very much for joining us. One more thing, this is not the meetup in July only. We have another one on the 30th of July. So please look out for our Facebook page and click on the meetup and join the meetup on the 30th. Okay. So with that being said, thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Wendy.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye bye.